Okay, hello. Hey y'all. Let's get into it. I I'm so excited to be bringing you this episode because Exodus Summit 2025 was giving freedom meets financial glow up energy in spades. Um, this year's theme for the summit was more move abroad money. And sis, man, they meant that. It was that in spades, I'm telling you. More clarity, more courage, more coins. The possibilities are just endless. And oh my God, I just can't wait to tell y'all about it. But what this means is more Black women getting into peace mode. And I mean, me included. If you've ever dreamt about working remotely, if you've ever thought about working remotely from Lisbon or sipping tea in Bali, um, or just building a life that feels as rich as you are in every sense of the word. This recap is for you. I'm breaking down my top takeaways from the summit, expertly curated by Stephanie Perry and Rashida Dowe. Um, I will be sharing what hit me the hardest, and how you can start stacking your own freedom fund to make your move abroad real. So go ahead and hit subscribe, grab your passport, and let's talk about what more move abroad money really looks like right here on the DeAnda Factor. All right, let's get into it. Um, the summit, this was the summit's Exodus Summit 6th year. And I am happy to say that it is also my 6th year. I have attended the summit for 6 years from the first year in 2020. And I don't know, it just kind of gives me goosebumps in a way, to know that finding this community, learning, discovering, exploring, and traveling with this amazing community of Black women, I, I just count myself as very and extremely lucky to have found this community, and to have been introduced to both Stephanie Perry and Rashida Dowe. What has been born out of this discovery, and being with this community, is accountability partners, friendships that have turned into family, um, traveling with these people, meeting up with these people. Um, it's priceless. It's priceless, and it's an experience that I don't know if I could duplicate, and if I could have found it any other way. Um, as I said, like, accountability groups. I mean, I know the definition of accountability and what that means. However, I feel like once I came into the Exodus Summit community, it took on quite a bit of weight of um, togetherness, as I mentioned, family, and sabbatical. I knew what that word meant, but I didn't think it was for me. And before Exodus Summit, seeing and hearing the stories of women who look like me, um, doing this and doing it scared, um, just, I don't know, it gives me energy. It gives me um, hope. And it makes me want to, create goals. It makes me want to um, attend a summit. And even after 6 years, I again count myself as so blessed and so privileged to be a part of this movement, if you will. So let's dive into it. The summit, Exodus Summit, is a 3.5 day event and experience. And it started last Friday. And that Friday, I think, was the catalyst for um, reigniting a fire that, frankly, it's been, lit, obviously, 6 years ago. But when I came back in the spring from my 5.5 month bopping about in Africa and then Southeast Asia, I don't know, being back in the States, it just kind of, dimmed a bit. Love being back with my family and being back in my neighborhood, back in Brooklyn. But that Friday, that first guest, like straight out of the gate, Rachel Rogers. She, quite honestly, if it were just her, it would have been worth the ticket. Every time she steps up to the mic, she, slays every time. Um, and this was no exception. Miss Rogers pretty much came, out with you can do this, type of mantras, if you will. And it was a great kickoff for the summit. As I said before, Exodus Summit each year for 6 years has been dynamic in the way that Stephanie and Rashida puts in the lineup, and they bring in guests and speakers who, really give you and feed you pretty much everything you'll need, all the tools. It's like you have this empty, toolbox once you enter, once it starts, and when you leave, it is full and overflowing. And that's what I felt on that Friday from the beginning. After directly following the session with Rach, yes, with Rachel Rogers, I was again, I just felt so fired up, and I immediately, took out my phone, found her book, We Should All Be Millionaires, and that night before I went to bed, started listening to the book. And it again, it just, immediately just kind of gave me fuel. And what it did was it added to my current plan. And it, kind of gave me additional principles that were, just super great, doable, realistic takeaways that would add to, the growth of my YouTube channel and my coaching business. And it's that kind of stuff that you receive in Exodus Summit that keeps me coming back, because, each year I'm like, oh, there's nothing else they need to tell me. I got it. Last year was, beautiful, great. Um, but they did it again. They did it again. And I think having Rachel open up the summit was by design. And it really did kind of set the stage for what was to come. So, needless to say, when we go into the second day, which, actually becomes the first full day, Saturday became the first full day of Exodus Summit. And I was just excited. The fire was lit. It was just like this ball of fire that was going, a million miles, and it wasn't ready to land at all. So we go into the second day and started it off with, I'm only going to give you basically my takeaways, my main points, because I don't have time to kind of go into the entire 4 days of the summit. So we started off the day with Dr. Sonia, who gave us Your Knowledge is Currency. And it was amazing. She really, it was, again, a great way to start off the Saturday morning session. And she reminded me that my knowledge isn't random, that it's rare, it's unique, and it's my own. And, sometimes with this perimenopause, sometimes I forget. But she reminded me that I got this. And, all I have to do is just keep going, and apply it. And yeah, I can do this. Right after Dr. Sonia, we had Shakira, and I don't know, I can't remember Shakira's last name, but her session was titled Full-Time Pay for Part-Time Work. And um, it was very fitting. And I found principles from her session as well that I could immediately apply to, the business that I am, working on, as well as the work that I'm doing with my employer, and how to leverage that to, I want to, when I go back out bopping, I want to do it differently than I did it this year. So again, she gave me some, some nuggets that, I mean, they brought it. Like I said, more money, y'all, more money. So we move on from Shakira's session, and then we had the Queen Bee, one of the Queen Bees, Stephanie Perry session. And Stephanie's session was titled, if I'm not mistaken, it was on YouTube. Oh, your 24/7 sales team. YouTube is your 24/7 sales team. And it was, having worked with Stephanie with the YouTube challenge, her YouTube challenge, as well as the YouTube Success Society, I was happily reminded, about providing my niche and collaboration. There were several other principles, but you'll have to get the replays to find them out. But there are nuggets that will provide growth and sustainability, with my YouTube channel. And if you are thinking about starting a YouTube channel, or if you have a YouTube channel, these principles are bar none. I mean, they are tried and true. And we can, always, look to Stephanie and Rashida's channel to get evidence of that. And I don't know. I mean, it just kept coming. After that, we had Jacqueline Tilley, her session on don't leave your money on the table, negotiate better pay. And that also can be applied to negotiations with your clients. And I don't know, like I said, the things that were provided during the summit, as always, they're not just kind of singular, and they apply to those of us who are working a job with a corporation, or if you have your own business, if you're consulting, if you're a freelancer, so on and so forth. So, you can find your sweet spot in pretty much everybody's session in order for you to move forward and do what, you feel is best. And the takeaways become kind of, just start to add up. And again, you're starting to fill up that toolbox. You're starting to put things in there that you'll be able to, nosh on throughout your journey of, taking a sabbatical or completely moving out of the States and finding your journey of making money and funding that dream. The last session, and I will say I wasn't completely, the last session on day 2, I wasn't necessarily looking forward to it because I'm not interested in teaching, but it was a teaching abroad panel. 3 people were on the panel, and they all 3 had different experiences of teaching abroad. 2 teachers were from the States, and 1 was from the UK. And they all 3 had different experiences on entering teaching as their way of funding their stay on a sabbatical or moving completely from their respective country. And again, I wasn't, like looking forward to it because I'm not interested in doing that. But there were nuggets in there that can apply to some of the things that I want to do and will be doing. And that's the thing about Exodus Summit. You can always find some little nugget that's going to feed you, that's going to give you that, oh, I didn't think about that, type of thing. And so, that summit, that session, that session really did, feed me. It really did provide some juicy nuggets to, figuring out and or adding to some of the projects or funding opportunities or avenues that I am going to take in order for me to bop. And I should also point out here, I am not necessarily interested in moving out of the States for reasons that my family is here. And so I will be more of a bopper. And I've, talked about that in, other episodes on this channel. But what that means, to kind of give context, because some people don't know what bopping is, it's slow travel. It's, maybe traveling for 3 months at a time or 6 months at a time, or even a whole year, but popping back into the States, to visit with and be with my family. So there's that. So anyway, some people, are choosing to move completely out of the United States, and some people are, taking sabbaticals from their jobs for extended periods of time, 6 months, a year, 2 years. I actually have one of my accountability partners. She she left her job on a sabbatical and never went back. She's not gone back. So also, met her in Exodus Summit. So it happens. When we were at the meetup in Vietnam, one young lady was on a sabbatical from her job, and she decided during that meetup time that she was not going back, and she called them from Vietnam to tell them, hey, I won't be coming back. And that's what getting out there will do for you. When I went to Vietnam for the first time this year, I was only supposed to be there for 2 weeks, and I ended up being there for 2.5 months. Again, you learn to, I'm a Virgo, so, I'm a planner. I'm let's, dot some I's, cross some T's before we, do anything. But what slow travel will show you and teach you is you'll pivot. And what Exodus Summit has helped with doing that is the pivot doesn't have to be a make or break you. The pivot doesn't have to be detrimental. It can be the sweet spot instead, right? So anyway, let's move into the third day. The third day of the summit was just as impactful. It was this kind of let's do this mode. I was like, again, like I said, the fire was lit, and it was only getting, better. So on the Sunday, the third day, we jumped right into several, great sessions. We started with launch your remote virtual assistant career. Again, not necessarily a session that, was for me, not interested in doing that, but I found some nuggets in there that would apply to, some of the things that I want to do. Not, necessarily being a virtual assistant, but maybe applying some of the marketing, branding principles that I have to, virtual coaching or virtual career, right? And after the virtual assistant career session, we moved into a tax talk. Again, not necessarily something that I'm interested in doing. I only want to do my own, nothing else. But it was an interesting talk, and was able to, kind of, find the sweet spot. There were some nuggets in there. We moved on from there to certifications with VetJet. And I'd already seen VetJet on Stephanie's channel, and I think she was interviewed on the Exodus Summit channel, I believe, with both Rashida and Stephanie at one point, and I think I caught that one. So I was already familiar with her, and familiar with the certifications that she mentioned. So again, it was kind of like a refresher. And it did give me, some things to add to the toolbox. So that was a excellent session. Right after her, we moved into Ink to Income, which was more or less becoming a freelance writer. But she was also, meaning Helena Black, led that session, was also able to provide, a peek into what being a freelancer as a whole, which I am familiar with being a freelance or a consultant marketing manager, so I get that. But she, added some things that I'd forgotten about, or that I can apply to what I'm doing now. So again, like every session was, just kind of packed full of something, some takeaway that, excuse me, I can add to my arsenal or my toolbox. So then we moved into our happy hour on the third day, which was led by Miss Octavia Rahim, a fan favorite. And we also had, I'm sorry, before we had Octavia, we had Rashida. And Rashida gave us relocation map with, which again, if you don't do anything else, I encourage you to get the replays because, like I said, these things are invaluable. What you will pay for the replays will give you or feed you basically throughout your journey of planning for your sabbatical or your leave, move abroad journey. But even if you decide to stay in the States, it will give you the tools that you need to be here and not want to, commit a crime. And I'm going to just leave it there. I'm not going to, get into the weeds of what I mean by that, because I think, if you're here in the United States, So anyway, we had, a fan favorite, which I always, kind of applaud Stephanie and Rashida because they listen to, the audience, and say, okay, we got to bring this person back. We got to, give them this again. Because I believe in 2024, if not 2024, it was 2023, Rashida gave us relocation math. And again, she just kind of gave us a little bit more than last time. And yeah, she made the math. And then, when you're thinking about, moving to Portugal, what that's going to look like, moving to Portugal from, let's say, Atlanta, vastly different. And, where you're going to pay in rent there versus here, yeah, you need to see that. You need to see what that looks like. Food prices, and, hotel prices even, So just getting those things, making you think about, hey, I didn't even think that I need to also look into, what's the gas prices in, Bali if I decide to, buy a car while I'm there, when I move there. It's all these things. If I'm, also taking my mother with me because I'm taking care of my mom, whatever, she, kind of threw those things in there to make you, one, think about it, and also calculate it. Because if you don't know your math, if you're going in blind, you're going to be bad. And that may not be what your plan is. You want your plan to go through, right? Excuse me, I do have a little, some notes because I want to make sure that I am not forgetting anything. So forgive me on that. So yeah, I did. I gave you exactly what I was supposed to give you on that. So we had Rashida came right before Octavia. Both of them, we had seen in past summits. Fan favorites is what I call them. So we welcomed them, loved it, got something new, got, refreshers on something, the stuff that I'd already known. Excuse me. And it was great. But the session that was the fire for on this day was the courage and cash flow Bun and Beyond Borders with OnlyFans, led by Mo the Goddess. Y'all didn't even know. I mean, of course, like everybody, I've heard of OnlyFans, but not, to the depths of being interested in it, right? Not to the depth of, oh, that's, and just her flow, her style, her story. Oh my God. Because coming out of Octavia's session, which I feel like they should have, switched them because you're so fired up. Although, ending with Mo the Goddess, I don't know. It just made me was like, I was ready for the next day. It was like, I was fired up because Octavia basically kind of, she brings you down. She, you're breathing, you are, meditating and really thinking about, hey, I'm going to do this and I'm thinking about that. And I didn't even know about this. And then you get a Mo the Goddess come in and you're like, they did it again. They did it again. I mean, like I said, y'all, the fire was firing. And just, my mind was just going. It was just like this, like I said, it was a ball of fire. It was a ball of fire. And that ball of fire, started kind of small with the first evening with Rachel Rodgers. And it was just growing. And by this point, on the second day, I was like, oh my God. I mean, I feel like I had this, smile on my face because I was just thinking about the possibilities, thinking about the plans. Virgo girl, she's planning. She's planning. I had my a dedicated notebook. I was taking writing notes and I was taking notes digitally too in Google Docs. So I mean, y'all, you know, I was posting, making sure it's like, because I'm not gonna get into that. I'm not gonna do that because that's kind of negative. But I wanted everybody I know to be here. I wanted everybody I know to get this, because again, you don't have to be on your way out of the country to be able to benefit from the knowledge of this, which is why I encourage you to get the replays for 2025 Exodus Summit. I mean, I'm going to keep saying it until you do, but it is fire. It is fire. In a word, it is fire. So anyway, let's move on to day 3. And day 3 of the summit, I'm sorry, day 4. I'm sorry, that was day 3. Day 4 of the summit, we are, yes, okay. Day 4 of the summit, the last day. I'm fired up. I'm also like wanting to get started. But, I'm like, let me just calm down. Let me, take a breath and get ready for the lineup that's coming, on this day. And, again, some of the people I knew, there were some fan favorites saved for the last day of the summit. And I was, happily looking forward to them. But, there were a few people that were new that I had not heard of and not been familiar with. So we started that day with the global taxoner, Chandra. I can't remember Chandra's last name. Sharonda. I'm sorry, Sharonda. She started off the day. Again, taxes, not my lane. Don't want to be a tax preparer. Not interested in that. Again, there were some nuggets. There were some things, takeaways that I could, at least deal with when doing my own taxes, Or my sister actually prepares taxes. So it's like, oh, I can tell her about this, that she needs to, look into that. Not necessarily, she's not necessarily interested in, moving out of the country. But one day if she is, hey, this is, some information. So then we moved on to a fan favorite, Miss Adelia. Um, Pinky Girl travels the world. Pretty sure you all know about her. But anyway, she talked about passive power play, make your money work for you. And she really kind of went into the weeds on, how to make your money work for you when you're sleeping, basically. Tools and strategies for doing that. And if you follow her, if you get on her channel, her YouTube channel, you'll get more of this. But Adelia has this unique way of connecting the dots for you and showing you, that, she's a former teacher, so she knows how to give it to you, package it in this way that you're like, I can do that. Yeah. Yeah, I can do it. Yeah. It sounded, before I was heard her say, yeah, I can actually do this. Right. And again, that's kind of, part of the special sauce that goes into Exodus Summit. But that's why they bring her back. That's why she's called a fan favorite, right? Um, at any rate, after Adelia's session, we are introduced to Deja Kennedy. And I loved her session. This was my first time meeting and hearing her name even. Um, didn't know about her, had not been on her social channels prior to Exodus Summit. She has a channel and she also has a book, y'all. And I got the book. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Her book, Moving Beyond Broke. At any rate, her session was called the Cost of Confidence, Rebuilding Your Relationship with Money. And even if you are good with money, it was not that I am. We can all use, lessons. We can all use strategy. And again, I loved her story. And sometimes for me, that's the thing, It's like I gotta be able to, kind of feel like I am there with you. You become like, my what I've called my hit squad, right? And I added her to my hit squad, y'all. Her book, like I said, I haven't, started it because I started Rachel Rogers' book first. But when we came up on her, I'm like, yeah, I mean, y'all, good stuff, good stuff. You have to get her, please get the replays. Please get the replays. Okay, following Deja, and I feel like they really packed them in on this last day because I think the last three people on the fourth day or the last day of the summit were I had not heard of them before. I had not been aware of made aware of their socials or their YouTube channels, books, all the things. I was introduced to them, right? And had I not gone to the summit, I never would have heard of them. Well, I won't say that because you go in the same circles. I probably would have looked up on it. However, I was happily introduced to these people. And I will say too, and I did not say this earlier, there were several sessions because of the knowledge that they were giving, the fire, if you will. I teared up, y'all, because it was like I get to do this. I'm getting this. You know, I, how blessed am I? You know, I want you to have that feeling. I do. I really do. So get the replays. Anyway, we moved on to Arlen Hamilton, which again, I had not heard of Arlington before. Arlen before. And her session was called Connections and Capital, the business of and community building and memberships. And I was actually looking forward to her session because of that. One, I'm already familiar with community because I'm in this community. You know, I'm in the Exodus Summit community, so understand that. But how do you build that with your business membership? How do you build that successfully with your business? So I was like, you know, ready. I had my notepad ready, you know, both the digital and the writing and the handwriting it, old school. So I was ready, and she blew it away. She blew it out the gate. Like, it was she's an amazing speaker. Again, her story, y'all, it's the stories. And see, I am intentionally not giving you, you know, all of the details because you need to get the replays. Like, seriously, you really do. Um, but y'all, it was, yeah, I mean, it was her story. It was her way of, you know, kind of telling us we can do it too. You know, this is not, you know, we're not one note. I'm not a one note. She's not a one note. This girl was homeless. She's a millionaire now, you know. And it's not just, you know, kind of listening to that part of the story and, you know, saying, okay, if she can do it, I can do it, which is what she said. She was like, if I can do it, you can do it. But it was saying that, you know, when fear, you know, comes in, disrespecting, you know, you say, no, no, because my sister Arlen did it, and this is how. And so I'm getting ready to do it too, right? So we moved on to, after Arlen, we moved on to Terry Ujama. Again, I had not heard of her either. I was looking forward to her session as well. She spoke on trading and investing. And I'm not a newbie in trading. So, but you know, I'm not, you know, like, I'm familiar with terms. I'm familiar with, you know, some of the things that she, you know, kind of gave as from a beginner kind of standpoint. I was already familiar with that terms and terminology, if you will. But she did. She took it, you know, she gave me something else. She gave me some other stuff that I could add to my toolbox. And it's that kind, and her story, y'all, you know, her story. It's that part. It's that part. And it is that part that, um, you know, Exodus Summit keeps getting right. Keeps getting right. We moved into happy hour with Desiree Parkman, who is also a fan favorite. She was at last year's summit, I believe. Yeah, 2024 summit. And she gave us Mind Over Money, breathing, meditation, movement, dance. Yes, we were in there dancing, y'all. Um, but it's that, and you feel this sisterhood, you feel community, you feel, I mean, you feel energized. And like I said, y'all, I was lit on fire. I was lit on fire. And this summit, you know, like the ones in the past, you know, really did, you know, take me there. It really did cement my reasoning for continuing to support this community, con- continuing to be in this community, continuing to talk about this community, and share it with y'all, and trying to get y'all to get the replays, because I'm telling you, it's life changing. It becomes a game changer, because you get to, and you get to find your sweet spot. You really do. This summit it was more than a hit. It was a treasure map to ease, a treasure map to joy, a treasure map to freedom. Okay. So I think that's what I'm going to end on. And yeah, like a quick recap. I'm going to say, get the replays, y'all. That's where I'm going to leave you. Get the replays. Exodus Summit 2025, More Move Abroad Money is worth its price in gold. It really is, bar none. Okay, y'all. Thank you, lovelies, for joining me on this recap. I will also leave you with, I am coming with a collaboration. It's coming soon, maybe even next week. Who knows? But a collaboration nonetheless. Again, taking some pointers from my coach, if you will, and mentor, sister friend, Stephanie Perry. I heard you. I hear you. I'm passing this on to you all, and see you next time, y'all. Remember to like and subscribe. Make some comments too. Love you, mean it. See you next time.